I'm Daria Feinstein, and these are the macaws of South Florida. There was 44 scientifically proven in 2010. Now there's maybe 11 left. They're making their last stand against extinction by staying here in South Florida, where there is an abundance of palm nuts that they can survive on, and they just need to be protected. So if the wild population crashes, we can reintroduce our birds to strengthen the breeding stock. You know, even though I've been doing this for 15 years, I still get this thrill when I see these birds, because it is magnificent. It's like watching the most beautiful sunset in the world, or jumping into the ocean on a hot day. Seeing these birds is such a heart. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking that I am so lucky to have these birds in my life. And they've become my life because I want to share this magnificence with whoever comes to South Florida.
Very sleepy out this morning. So we are here in Florida, and we got to meet Daria, and she kind of is one of many people who just kind of takes care of and oversees that the wild flocks of macaws are doing all right, puts food out for them every now and then, gives them places to nest and be safe and not poached, because they're heavily poached in this area. So we are waiting for them to come this morning. So excited to actually see them come in a flock. We heard them, so they are nearby, but they haven't actually come and landed yet. So there's plenty of other local wildlife, but we haven't seen the macaws yet. She puts out her birds to attract the wild birds as well. She says that it kind of calms them. So we'll see if they show up this morning. We plan to come back later too if we aren't able to catch them this morning. By catch them, I mean get footage of them, not poach them like other people. But apparently there's a baby among the flock. Super excited to see. The cool thing about the wild parrots in Florida is they're non-invasive. So they've been found to be non-invasive. They don't use the same nesting sites. They don't feed off of the same foods as the other birds, the other wildlife. So they don't seem to cause any sort of issues with the native wildlife, which is really cool. The only problem is that they're not protected because they are not native here. And so people are poaching them. They're taking even the adults, selling the adults as breeders, and then they're stealing the babies from the nests. So it's really sad to see the numbers decline so much. So I really want to see these guys thriving out here, because I think it's beautiful and wonderful, and it's amazing for them to have another place to live that doesn't cause any environmental problems. So Daria's putting out all the stuff that she normally does for the macaws. I'm not quite sure what all is included, but I did see some nuts in there. Lots of locals hanging out. Oh, I hear them. I think that's them. I think that's them. Oh my gosh, they're in the sky. That's gotta be the macaws. Yes.
Here we go. Dave. Dave?
Yeah.
Oh, they just flew over our heads. I hear them. She said they're in the front trees. I think they might have flown over further. Oh! I thought I heard them to the left. That way? Yeah, they're way far that way. I don't think we can see them from here. That was cool. I heard them and then I got video of them flying in.
I got a shot on here too.
Cool. I love hearing them.
I like seeing them.
Yeah, I like seeing them too. I wish we could see them.
What is this? A rock?
It's coconut.
I thought coconuts were hairy.
Oh, they are, but you can peel the hair off.
There's different types of coconuts.
There's one. There's one in the pond. One just fly up.
Pretty. Yeah, he's right there.
What's up, everybody? We are down here in South Florida with Tyler Nolan because we want to share with him some of the amazing stuff that we're seeing with the wild macaws in South Florida. It's been absolutely incredible. The flock just flew off, but we've just been gawking over it and, and filming the wrong birds a little bit there too.
Just for a half second.
Yeah.
What'd you think, Tyler?
I thought it was awesome.
Have you ever seen parrots in the wild before?
Well, there's quicker parrots in my neighborhood.
Well, I'm talking like real parrots, like macaws.
In the wild, in Florida, no. In Costa Rica, yeah.
Yeah.
But not here.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
It's pretty. Don't write hate mail because I didn't call Quakers real parrots, but for us macaw lovers, it's pretty spectacular to see them in the wild. So even if it's in Florida, what'd you think, kiddo? We need more sleep.
I need to fly a little more north towards my house.
Yeah.
Is it cooler there with less bugs? Oh, that's not them. Psyched out. That wasn't me.
I got into this because of Hurricane Andrew. Hurricane Andrew, my daughter was in veterinary school at the time, and when she was home, it happened to come when she was just getting ready to go back to Tufts. And we heard the call of a wild macaw in the mangroves across the street, and we kept on hearing it repeatedly. So we tromped in. It was really nasty after the hurricane. Anyhow, we found the macaw was injured and trapped. So with that time, I didn't know about the wild macaws, so we brought the macaw home, and then that became the love of my life. As everybody here who has birds, one bird led to another because the veterinarian finished her veterinary and was in practice. So anybody that needed a home for a macaw, Mom! But I now have 6, and that's really my limit because it's about as many as I can get in my SUV. So no more macaws because they live a very long life. And as you can tell from my earlier pictures that I've had them for close to 30 years now, and I think they're going to outlive me. So this is the article by Bill Prenti on the natural history of the blue and gold macaws. So there were 44 counted. And they were done the Audubon bird count. We knew how to call it. We'd have 2 people at different sites so that we wouldn't count the same bird twice. And then they started disappearing. First I thought Fuzzy had found perhaps a mate because he had been making overtures to Little Bird, but it didn't kind of work out. So I thought that he had gone, there's another one. I thought that they had come back, that he had gone off in search of a mate. But then they just kept on disappearing and disappearing and disappearing. And what happened was one of the birders called me that they were at the University of Miami. A guy came with a net gun, and they're protected by bird sanctuary laws unless they're on public land or public square. So the birds were on the side of the road in the Casuarina Pines. They shot 6 of them down with bird nets, and they flashed licenses. You can be licensed in Florida to capture birds as long as they're doing it humanely. So they took 6 birds. The Audubon people sat around, they couldn't do anything about it. And that spurred our bird club to make a presentation to Florida Fish and Wildlife, where we tried to get an exception to the non-native law. And we had 250 people show up. We had speakers like Susan Clubb, and we had all the scientific material, and they did not make an exception. They did assign us a biologist who did say that they are not invasive. And there's in a recent FIU paper in avian research, and it's a PhD candidate, and he did a wonderful paper to show that and this is extremely important to get across. The public thinks that somehow or other they lump the macaws in with the iguanas and the pythons and the monitor lizards that we have here in Florida, and they feel that they are invasive and they're taking away from native birds for their habitat or for food or for nesting sites. Completely false. Parrots, wild parrots, are a city phenomena. They don't compete with any native bird, and they live in palm trees. This paper shows. All the nests are in royals or barossa palms, or they eat palm nuts. They eat coconut nuts. They eat royal palm nuts. They don't compete with any native bird. And that's a scientific fact. Why they won't make an exception and why they allow this poaching. And the latest poaching, besides the net guns and besides raiding the nest for the eggs, they have been using a glue it's a Spanish glue called pegum. And they've been lining the nests with this glue. So when the birds come in to their nesting sites, they get stuck. Bird showed up in my backyard with glue all over his chest, calling for his flock members or mates. It was so sad. So I did have Channel 7 did a special report and got people from the zoo and some people from FIU talking about how they're being poached with glue, with net guns, and with climbing and raiding the nests with cleats and ladders. Terrible, 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 terrible. First of all, macaws, as you know, have the facial feathers, the lines, and they're like fingerprints, and can identify them. So I had a biologist who volunteered named Devin Belliston from Utah, by the way. And he filmed all the birds and photographed all the birds' feathers, and that's why we proved that the macaws that were being sold in the flea market and a bad pet store in Homestead were the same macaws that were flying in my trees today. So we proved that it was the same macaw that was poached as a wild macaw and sold in the flea markets. Karen Lee, another feeder, who I hope you get to film today, has a GoFundMe page, Save the Blue and Gold Macaws of South Florida. She wants to put up, and we've done two. We've done one already through our bird club. We want to sacrifice a royal palm in safe places where they can nest. By the way, don't forget, macaws have the cognitive functioning of a 4 to 5 year old child. So they have learned that they're being poached. So they're now sleeping or roosting at night in the fire department's station, because they know the firemen are not going to allow poachers get them while they're sleeping. Public is our eyes and ears. We need people to know that, number one, parrots are not invasive. It is true they're non-native, but they are not invasive. They don't compete with any wild bird for any habitat, and I can quote studies and prove it. The public thinks, they accept the poacher's explanation. Oh, they're invasive. We're capturing them to protect our own birds. Completely false. They're making their last stand against extinction by staying here in South Florida, where there is an abundance of palm nuts that they can survive on. You saw how healthy and full-feathered and healthy they are. They don't need me to feed them. They have plenty of queen palm nuts, royal palms, all sorts of palm nuts. And they just need to be protected. So if anything happens to the wild population, crashes, we can reintroduce our birds to strengthen the breeding stock of in Bolivia. The blue and gold macaws are down to single 200 less birds, but there are plenty of blue-throated macaws in South Florida we could bring to Bolivia to strengthen the stock for genetic, because as you know, if you down to 200, there'll be inbreeding and there'll be problems with the chicks. We have to put up in safe places like Fairchild Gardens, Pinecrest Gardens. There's City of Pinecrest is very supportive. During the nesting season, I tell the police department where the birds are, and they put extra patrols to see if they can catch these poachers. If we put, and we know that there are certain sites in Miami that are safe, the Guthries, we would like to put up palms. It's significant height, and we're going to put up these palms, take the tops off, and then protect them. But you saw today, one of those macaws, it was a baby. So in spite of all the obstacles of the poaching, the macaws are good parents. They can raise these, we can build the numbers up if they don't get poached.
Nailed it.
Stands here. Is that one falling out?
Feeling sexy?
I've never looked better.
We're about to go flying! Woo! Oh, it's a little blurry.
Are we blurry?
All right, we're about to go fly!
Inside.
Excuse me, ma'am. How long have you been working with birds?
What are you doing, Dad?
I'm interviewing you.
I don't know.
Do they call you the bird lady?
No. Stop.